And three, two. All right, it's time to talk with our featured guest, Dr. Robert Laraway. Robert, how's it going?
Good, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, but do you prefer Rob or Robert?
Rob would be great.
Rob. All
Yep.
right. Rob, man, how's it going? So, where are you located right now?
So I'm in Maryland on a little island in the Chesapeake Bay called Kent Island, which is near Annapolis, Maryland.
Man, I hear like in a couple months, maybe a month, it's going to be like extremely beautiful out there.
Hopefully, yeah. Fall is usually the best time of year up here. We still get the heat and humidity, so it's pretty hot summer.
How hot does it get over there?
With the humidity, the heat index is at like 100.
Oh, wow. I don't know
Yeah.
why I was thinking like 80 or something like
I wish. Yeah, I
that.
wish.
Gee, and then with the humidity, even,
Yeah.
eesh,
Well,
yeah.
it's like 90s, and then the humidity puts it up to like 100.
Wow. So it's like
Yeah.
those two shower type of days where you're like, I feel
Oh
sweaty
yeah.
already.
Yeah. You go outside, you sweat. Yeah.
Man. But I feel like Maryland is it Maryland or Vermont or that area where like you see in fall, it's like so many colors. Like,
Yeah, New England. That's more New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. So that's a little bit further north than us.
how far is that from you?
It's probably 3 or 4 hours north.
Okay. Okay. It's not that bad. Not that bad. Okay. Good, man. That's awesome. So, Rob, let's get into your past, your present. How did you get to where you are today?
Sure. So kind of had a sad childhood dream. Actually, my parents just moved out of their house and they saved all of my schoolwork, even like the little macaroni necklaces. But in there was a sixth grade. My name is blue hair or blue eyes, blonde hair, and in there said my goal. Or when I grow up, I want to go to full scholarship to play soccer at UCLA, which didn't happen, and I didn't go to California, and then I want to be an orthodontist. So in there, I had a dream of being an orthodontist in sixth grade. And I think that's because I had early treatment. I had a phase one. So I had an underbite. My orthodontist fixed that. And then going on, my best friend is actually my orthodontist son. So I was at their house all the time, and I kind of liked the guy he was. He was kind of a pillar in the community. He was always at my friends' soccer games and all the sports. So I liked the dental side of things. I had a lot of friends with physician parents also, and they were on call and they couldn't make it to events and stuff. So I kind of liked the idea of being my own boss, and kind of dictating my schedule.
Mhm.
So then it kind of just transitioned into there. I grew up in central Pennsylvania, ended up going to Penn State in Pennsylvania, knowing I wanted to be a dentist that whole time. And then after Penn State, started dental school at University of Maryland in Baltimore. And then kind of grinded, knowing you want to do ortho, you get like a B on a exam and you're like, oh, I'm done ortho. Not going to get in. But ended up getting into Maryland. So I stayed there for another 3 years for residency. And then my wife, who I met in college, is doing her pediatric dental residency. So this side of there, Maryland's kind of split by the Chesapeake Bay. So there's the Eastern Shore, which is across the Chesapeake Bay, which is where I am, and that's where she did her residency. And we ended up staying here. So that's kind of what got me into ortho, is more of my best friend's dad and seeing kind of the guy he was, and everyone looked up to him and wanted to be kind of the entrepreneurial aspect of the dentistry.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And where in this were you like, oh, I'm gonna get my own practice?
Yeah. So going through residency, probably the most common way to become a business owner in orthodontics was to associate. You find a good practice, you become an associate, you partner in, you buy the practice when the
Mhm.
guy leaves. So that was kind of my intent. It would have been ideal if I could stay at my hometown and take over my friend's dad's practice, but my friend actually became an orthodontist and he took over his dad's practice. So for a while, I looked for that, a close to retiring orthodontist that I liked the practice. I liked him, um, and just didn't exist. So kind of with DSOs going into dental, it's big now. OSOs, which are orthodontic organizations, are starting to
Hmm.
purchase a lot of the orthodontic practices. They can pay more than people right out of school. So it's very hard for orthodontists, younger orthodontists now to find a practice for sale. Um, Starting your own practice for ortho is a little bit riskier than I would say for general because your cash flow is delayed. So you start a case, it's a 2-year case. Your fees are spread out over 2 years. So you only get like a little bit of treatment fee up front, as opposed to you come in, you get a crown, you collect, and you're done. Even insurance is paid out over that 2 years as well. So I would say the startup is not a common path, but I feel in orthodontics, but I feel like it's becoming more and more common as these OSOs are buying out the established offices.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's rewind a little bit, man. Rewind a little
Yeah,
bit. You said that paper you had, it was a sixth
yeah.
grade? Sixth
Sixth
grade?
grade, September 7th, 2000. So
Wow.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then why soccer?
I played soccer throughout my whole childhood, into high school. And I've been on here. My favorite player is Kobe Jones. This was this guy with big dreadlocks, and he went to UCLA. So I guess that was always my goal. But trying to play soccer in college and go to dental school is a little bit challenging. Still played intramurals and stuff here and there, but that soccer dream died out as dental took over.
Yeah. That's cool that you put orthodontist though, and now you are, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah. I
it's
spelled it wrong, and I got it. Wasn't my best paper either. I think I got like a 90 on it for not skipping lines, but I'll hold on to that forever. Yeah,
dude, a 90 is like A plus plus in my
yeah.
household. So, but and it's interesting because you said you wanted so very very early on you already knew you wanted to be your own boss.
Yeah, like I said, part of the reason why I want to be orthodontist, I don't think I knew what orthodontist entailed,
Yeah.
bending wires and all this. I think I just wanted to be that my friend's dad who he kind of ran his own schedule. He led a team. He could look at his work and it paid off in the end. And I kind of wanted that incentive and motivation. Your hard work gets paid off if you're a business owner. And then it kind of just went from there. I started off as an associate and kind of seeing the production numbers. I was like, why am I working this hard? And I could, I wanted to be an associate to learn, but then I like the business side of things, so it made sense to kind of become my own boss and start up my practice.
So what did you learn in your associateship where you're like, I like this. I'm going to take this to my own practice eventually. And then what did you were like, I hate everything about
Yeah.
this.
So my first practice was still while our first associateship was while my wife was finishing her residency. So it was a high Medicaid office. So, and I was right out of school. So I had to learn, to transfer cases. So I saw a lot of cases that were already started, and kind of had to learn my speed. You sit down, ortho, you sit down for a patient, you have to think of what you're doing, tell the assistant, and they do it, and come up with treatment plans pretty quickly. So I learned my speed in my first associateship, and kind of how to be efficient in treatments, which you don't really learn in residency. And then when my wife got her first job, I switched associateships to a more private insurance, private pay practice, and learned a lot more of the business side of things, the systems, how to process insurance, how to take patient phone calls, how to do treatment consults. Because again, business, we don't learn much business in dental school. You don't learn much business in residency. So rather than getting out and trying to learn it in a startup, I tried to take in as much as I could. And I would even even when I'm not working, go to practices in the area or friends' practices and just kind of take notes of what I liked, what I didn't like. So I had a Google document for like 3 years of curing lights that I liked, this that I liked that saw at this practice, and kind of just made notes for myself. If I ever decided to open my own practice, I kind of had a baseline of what I liked and what I didn't like.
That's nice. Did they just let you go in? You would
Yeah,
walk in and be like, "Hey man, I want to like check out what you guys got," or what was the
yeah,
script?
yeah, yeah. So I would, and initially when I was looking at jobs, you would go for like a working interview, and I would just observe and watch them, and then, as I was an associate, people like talking about ortho, and so Some of the owners, they would be friends of people that I know. So I would just reach out and say, do you mind if I come check out your practice for a day and spend a day there? And they actually learn from you too. You bring things that you learned, as technology is coming through with clear liners and TADs. Some of the older orthodontists weren't exposed to that. So I think more and more, as I'm seeing more and more CE events, it's like, come to my practice and watch me work on patients for a day, because you don't really get exposed to that in residency.
That's true. You're right. Do you feel like, or was there ever a practice that you went into where wasn't even worth it?
I don't think so. I think regardless of if the practice was good or bad, even if you learned something, one thing that you didn't like, that's still helpful. It's still worth it. So I don't think there was ever a wasted visit, a wasted question. I think even if everything was the same, you can pick up one thing, it's worth it.
Yeah. What were some things you didn't like and why?
It's a good question. I don't even know if I mean, the old school was a lot of wire bending,
Hmm.
and that's kind of faded out as you can position brackets better. And so there wasn't a whole lot of things that I picked up that I didn't like. It was more of the things I tried to focus on that I would want to implement in my practice.
Got you. So in your first associate, you learned your speed.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit more about that. Like, what were you getting it down, or that's how you're like, this is how I'm always gonna, or are you still trying to improve your speed now?
I mean, it's more decision making. So ortho,
Mm.
it's not how fast you can do a MOD, it's decision making. So you see a patient, you see their bite, you see their teeth, you have to come up with a 2-year plan in your head and hope that it works the way you think it's going to work. Um, so getting up to speed with trying to come up with a treatment plan is probably the biggest for ortho, and it's all doctor time, because I was seeing, anywhere up to 100 patients a day. So you have to be quick. You can't just sit and try to think about a case. And so that was where the speed came from. It wasn't actually clinical speed. It was, your mental speed and decision making.
Got you. That's good. That's really,
Yeah.
really good. And so your wife is also a pediatric.
PETA.
She's a pediatric.
Yeah.
Okay. So are y'all like right now? Does she have her own practice too, or no?
She's in line to partner. So that was kind of what led me. There was my second associateship, was hoping would turn out to a partnership, but that ended up getting sold to a corporate.
Mm.
So at that time, it gave me kind of the kick in the butt to open my own practice. So having my wife as pedo, it was a little bit lower risk for me because I knew a source of patients. I could depend on her for referrals. So I opened my practice December of 2020. So I couldn't get loans because COVID was out. People weren't startup loans. You couldn't really get them.
Hmm.
So I found a place to sublease. Actually, it was an accounting firm. They moved all virtual and in-home. So he had like a 1-year lease left. It had bathrooms. It had a reception area. So I thought, this could work. It was low risk. I didn't put a whole lot of money into the build out. I painted and I got a delivery, like a mobile delivery cart. So it's like the compressor and vacuum is all in the cart. Because ortho, we don't use the drill a lot.
Yeah.
Um, so I set up shop I got a loan for a pan machine, and that was pretty much it. The rest was all kind of, I bought the supplies with our own money, rented with our own money, and got up and running. So I ended up, this sublease is still right across the street. I'll go over where I am now, but it's positioned right next to 2 elementary schools and right across the street from a middle school, and then right down the street from my wife's practice. So it ended up kind of was like fate, it worked out really well.
So your wife has had her practice first and then your second, or no?
So my wife is her first job, and it ended up turning into a partner track. So once that happened, we kind of felt comfortable buying a house. We rented for a long time until we knew we wanted to be in one place. So we didn't want to buy a house as an associate and then have to leave and move. So once she was on partner track, we bought a house, and then about a year later, I opened my own practice. So she's been an associate for 3 years now, and then is in line to partner at that practice.
How old is your first kid?
3.
Oh, so that wasn't during, it was.
So we had him right before my wife started. He was about 2 or 1.5 when I opened up. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a
It was
lot,
a lot.
Rob.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
all in the middle of COVID, but at the same
COVID,
time,
yeah. Bought a house in the middle of COVID. Opened my practice middle of COVID. Yeah,
yeah. And then now your practice, and then
yeah,
in line for part.
yeah,
It's a lot. We'll get into the psychological part of that a little bit later. But
yeah.
when it comes to the build out, how much was that?
So my first build out, I moved locations since then, but my first build out, paint was $3,000, and I redid floors in my console area, and that was 500. So, you know, pretty
That was
cheap. And the rest was equipment that I got. That was it.
okay. How much was equipment?
So I found used equipment on Craigslist. So I'm very patient. I waited for the right place to open up. I waited for the right equipment. So chairs and carts and stuff, a couple $1,000s, and then that was on Craigslist used. And then the X-ray was probably about 40, and that was through a dental vendor. That I didn't want to buy used because I was afraid if it didn't work, then I'm out of luck. So, and then sterilizer came with the chairs. There's a little Statum because we didn't need a whole lot. So we just got up and running. And as cash flow got better, we invested into better and newer equipment. So it was kind of a low risk, lean startup.
Yeah. So in total, how much was it then?
Equipment with a loan, without the loan, equipment and all that was probably 60,000.
60. And then with the loan, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. About
That's
11.
including that, including the loan. The pan was 40, the paint and stuff was 5. So yeah, I got up and running.
What, 60?
Yeah.
How many ops do you have?
So since we've moved, it's an open bay concept. So we have 4 chairs now, and then we're going to build a private room for more adults and Botox and filler and stuff like that to bring in.
So this used to be you said an accounting, right?
The old one, yeah,
The old
yeah,
one. And so you decided to put just the equipment there, chairs. Somebody
yep.
did the plumbing and all that stuff, right?
Plumbing. So I didn't need any plumbing because I had that mobile cart. I filled it was like a
Oh
water bottle, so
yeah.
no plumbing. And then I knew at that 1 year mark after that sublease went out, I would either have to do a full renovation, plumb it out, sign a 10-year lease or something, or move. And during that time, the building right across the street from that accounting firm went for sale. So it's a standalone building, better parking. So it took a long time to try to get financing for that, but it was the right time to buy. Rates were good because it was still, inflation didn't jump up yet. So in October of 2021, so only about 10 months after opening, I purchased the building across the street, and then we started renovation there. So that was a little bit more involved. That was a full build out. I'm in it now. It was a pizza place.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so we had to kind of gut everything and then do a build out. And even my build out here was, I would say, a lot less expensive than a full build out. I tried to do things a lot myself. I used a regular contractor as opposed to a dental contractor because I researched, I kind of knew what I was doing for the dental side of things.
mhm.
Um, and it already had bathrooms. We turned the old walk-in freezer for the pizzas into our utility room. So vacuum and compressor are in there. So this build out was probably, I got new chairs, new equipment. So we're probably a little over 100,000 for this build out and equipment.
Nice. Who'd you go with or did you get a loan from a specific bank?
PNC. Yeah, so I went with PNC for both the building purchase and the build out. It was more of a line of credit. So I tried to get, the federal loan, which takes forever. Almost lost the building, and then PNC worked with me a lot. I'm very thankful for them, and they're still great to work with. So they kind of funded everything.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
I hear two things when it comes to contractors, right? I remember going to
yeah,
Breakaway a couple times and they talk to us and they're like, why would you want to go with the regular person when dental's all, you know what I mean? They're like
yeah,
exactly what you need. They know all the ins and outs, all the details. Then I hear the
right.
opposite. Then I'm like, oh, same thing, but they
Yeah.
just slap on dental and then they upcharge like, you know what I mean? Like a but
Yeah, the dental tax, right? They
yeah.
call it like yeah, my friend who's a vet, she got the Midmark M11, same sterilizer. It's like $2,000 cheaper than the dental version, which is the same exact thing. The
The
dental
dental,
tax. Yeah.
the dental
So
tech.
So I put in time, I went to breakaway. It wasn't as ortho specific. Ortho is like a
Mhm.
whole nother ball game compared to the other specialties, I feel like. And then I just, read Dental Town, listened to podcasts, read Facebook groups, and tried to learn as much as I could about the build out process, what I needed. Um, Banco actually helped me with my floor plan, and I learned a lot of floor plans on Facebook and stuff. So I was comfortable. I actually had to tell the contractor, here's what I need for the lines for the plumbing, and I still brought on a local dental plumber because I think that was important. But the rest of the build out was just the general contractor and saved a lot of money, I think.
Yeah, that's good. Do you feel like sometimes, I mean, you see some of the posts and groups and things like that, we're kind of too boggled down on the details where it's like, hey, man,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's dental. We're like type A, you need to like control everything, and
yeah,
yeah, I'm guilty of that too. So I was here a lot, like luckily I was working across the street when I was still subleasing. So I would be over here every day, like, what's going on now? Micromanaging the construction, but that's how you get it the way you want it, I guess.
that's what I was gonna say. Like when you went in there, and I guess like for lack of a better word, micromanage.
Yeah.
Did you notice like, hey, you're doing this wrong? Like, didn't we discuss this or no?
Yeah,
None of that happened.
there were some things like they started putting the drywall up, and then I realized they never insulated in the walls. And dental, like it's so loud, so they had to tear luckily I caught that. They had to tear the drywall, put the insulation in. So I mean, I'm glad I was here, and I had a whiteboard with my notes for the contractor when I wasn't here. Like, please make sure you do this, this, and this, because you don't want to have to go back and do things again if it's not the way it should be the first time.
Yeah. So it is good then, right? Like, would you
Yeah.
recommend like, hey, get in there?
Yeah, no, I mean, you have to let them do their work, but I would definitely make sure they're doing. I went every night, like I was still working part time at an associateship, so at the end of the day, I would drive over to the office, check it out. No one was here, but just make sure everything was done how I would hope it would be done.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay. So then when did you start the hiring process?
So started the hiring process. I worked myself for the first month. So I was doing all the calls. Patient would call and say, "This is the doctor I'm talking to." So I took calls, I called insurances, did all the exams, did everything. And then about a month, I brought on a clinical assistant and kind of cross-trained her to help with front desk, which was very important. She was great learning everything because early on, I feel like if you can get someone that can do multiple things, it helps a lot. Um, and then I would say about 6 months after that is when I brought on a receptionist to, be up front and kind of handle all that. So the clinical assistant could do all like the adjustments and treatments.
Gotcha. So you have how many employees in total right now?
So now we have three. We have sterilization and records. She takes pictures, she runs sterile, she flips chairs, she helps us. She's Spanish speaking, which has been a lot of help here. And then we have a lead clinical assistant and then a front desk admin.
Gotcha. Okay. So three employees, and how'd you find them?
The one was from another job that I worked at. She left because she had a baby, and then she just wanted something kind of part time, which was perfect. As a startup, we were only open every other week and then every week, so it was nice for her to come in. The receptionist reached out to us. She saw our Instagram and reached out to us. She worked in ortho for a while and then took time off, so everything kind of just fell in. And then the last hire, I put an ad out, and that's how I found her.
That's
But I would
nice, man.
say out of the startup, hiring employees is probably the most difficult process. Finding the right person, because you just don't want anybody, because they're reflecting your practice and everything you built.
Yeah. Was it kind of tedious, like the hiring process for you, or like the
It
interview
was, and
process?
I think it's going to continue as we grow. It's going to be more and more employees, and I think that's one of the challenges is keeping delegating enough. So in the beginning, I was like micromanaging. I was trying to do everything, and it wasn't possible. I was getting burned out. So learning to delegate tasks and trust that everything was done correctly was very important, and you have to trust the person that you hire to be able to do that. So I think it will continue to be probably the hardest part of owning a practice is the HR side of things, but it comes with the territory, I guess.
do you do anything specific in the interviews? Like, what are you looking for where you're like, this is it, this is the right person, and then you're like, this, you're wasting my time, but I guess I'm gonna like
Yeah. So
entertain
as
it.
more of the culture. So I always heard you hire for personality, not for skills. You know, you could have the best skilled orthodontic assistant, but if they're miserable, you know, you don't want that with your patients. So it's kind of hiring for personality, and then I'm comfortable trying to teach them how I want, you know, how I want them to do the chair side clinical stuff. So it came down to personality mostly.
Gotcha, man. That's good. That's good. Rewind a little bit. I want to go back a little bit. And you said you feel like what actually would you just recommend? Let's just say orthodontists are listening right now. Would you
Yeah.
recommend breakaway to them? Or be like, nah, you're
I
not
don't think
gonna
so. No, I don't think so. So I just, and this kind of, I tried to learn a lot about startups, and there just wasn't a lot about startups for ortho because in the past there was everyone went in and bought a practice, existing practice. So about 2 weeks ago, I started an orthodontic startup Facebook group because I think it's important. There, nothing exists like breakaway for orthodontics, you know, and so my hope there is so far we're up to like 100 members, but everyone's asking questions. You know, what insurances do I need as a startup? How do you do insurance for orthodontics? Because that's totally different than general dentistry. So I think Breakaway had good concepts, but it didn't translate to ortho as well as I hoped.
Yeah. Nice, man. So you started the making
Yeah.
of a orthodont or
Yeah,
like
so
a
hopefully, I mean, it's like I said, it's a totally different ball game. So hopefully that continues to grow. We have people that are contributing a lot. So even I'm learning a ton. So I hope it continues.
to grow. Yeah. What is it
Yeah.
called?
Orthodontic startups.
Orthodontic startups. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So all the orthodontist people listening, man, like go check it out. That's gonna be nice, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked about the employees. What's production and collection looking like for you right now?
So summer is usually great for orthodontics because all the kids are off school. So we had our best month in July. Collections is always lagging, like I said. So it's good and bad. You have accounts receivable, which got a lot of orthodontists through the COVID period. You know, they were shut down, but you still collect your monthly payments, which is kind of unique. So now collections is kind of dragging behind, but it's nice to see production keeps going up and up. We are kind of patient, and like I said, I think because we are so lean, it slowed the growth a little bit. But now that we're kind of taking off and cash flow is there, now we're ready to kind of pump more money into marketing and that stuff, which hopefully will lead to more exponential growth.
Yeah. How many new patients are you getting monthly right now?
So right now we're open 3 days a week and we see about 8 new patients a day. So we're doing pretty well, you know, about 30 to 35 a month.
Oh wow. Okay. So then what are you doing for marketing and advertising?
So currently, I'm kind of in a unique area. It still relies on word of mouth a lot. So doing a lot of community outreach. Like we'll sponsor a lot of the youth sports events. We'll sponsor the Moms Club events. Donate to the schools. Donate to the library, and that's more, I think, a slower way to get patients, but a sustainable way to get patients. You know, everyone heard of us through this and this, and this person said nice things. Um, Try to dabble in Google ads and Facebook ads. And that's where I think our next phase is, you know, bring on someone with experience and a marketing background to kind of take that over because again, it's too hard and I don't know enough about it. And I think that's kind of where the next getting more of an online presence would help our practice.
Yeah. No, definitely. Community. So let me ask you something. A lot of this involves like ground marketing, right? Community outreach,
Yeah.
sponsors events, things like that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the sponsor sports events? Like when you're at how what's the population like over there where you live?
So population is growing. The kids are growing a lot. So that was important. I looked at a lot of locations before my wife settled down in her practice. I looked at Northern Virginia, Maryland, everywhere to see where that growth was because for ortho, you want where the kids are. You know, I looked at what schools are being built. Are they doing expansions of schools? Because that was a sign there's growth for the youth population,
Mm,
which usually meant good for ortho. And I also
smart.
looked at the competition. So I looked at, you know, I pulled up people's websites and how old are the orthodontists. If they're getting close and have a terrible website or no website, you know, they're not much of a threat. but I didn't want to set up shop right next to some young guy or young girl that's a go-getter, because that'd be hard to compete with. Um,
Hmm.
so for the community outreach, I don't know if we get a whole lot, but I think people in my area like that you're giving back to the community, and that's what I want to be. I want our practice to be part of the community. So even if it doesn't get the patients in the door, it makes us feel good. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
we're giving back to everybody here. So word of mouth helps a lot, but like I said, I think our next step is more of the online marketing.
Gotcha. What's the demographic for you then? Patient to doctor ratio? Do you know?
Uh, well, we have a good amount of, I have a good amount of orthodontists here, but with my wife being pedo, that helps. So I think, I don't know what our exact population to ortho demographic is, but we have about 4 orthodontists in a couple miles here.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
So that's another thing with to set ourselves apart, which is what all these startup posts, you have to find a way to get a different market, which is why we're going to bring on Botox and whitening and stuff to kind of tap into the adults, get them in the door.
Yeah,
Because a lot of the adult ortho, they just want, straight front 6 teeth, more aesthetics. So it kind of goes hand in hand with that.
with whining and everything like that.
Yep.
Interesting. That's smart. Yeah. I was asking about the sponsored like sports events because I know here, and this is like, remember, keep in mind LA. So it's like
Yeah.
throw a rock and you're going to hit like 10, right?
Yeah.
So I remember years ago doing a sponsored sports event and didn't do anything for like the whole year.
Yeah.
Maybe it brought in some brand recognition. I don't know, but I'm thinking maybe for your community, it will, like it,
Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
um build the brand. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like they even still have little newspaper ads that go out in this area. And one kid recognized me at the soccer field, said, you're the guy in that thing. So it's still kind of an old school feeling here. We still depend a lot on referrals, general dentist and pediatric, which in a more city area, LA, people just look online and say, where are the good reviews, and, shop around. But over here, it's still kind of the way it was 10 or 20 years ago. They rely on word of mouth and what their dentist recommends, which has been
Yeah.
helpful for us. Yeah.
Yeah. And still till today, I feel like that's the strongest patient you're
Yeah.
gonna like new patient you're gonna get is like a referral, right?
Yeah,
From
exactly.
somebody. So right now, throughout this process, I guess from the moment you started doing this till right now, what's been some of the best companies you worked with and some of the worst companies?
Well, PNC has been helpful. Benko, you know, I always heard things like avoid the big three, top three dental, but they've been very helpful. I think the biggest help for them is they have their own floor plan design division. So I bounced ideas back a lot. I agreed to purchase equipment through them, but they helped me with the floor plan a lot, which is where I feel like a lot of startups struggle, and trying to think of how best to design and optimize the space. Um, and then just some of the more orthodontic manufacturers, the bracket manufacturers and the clear aligner manufacturers. But other than that, we haven't done a whole lot of, bringing in a whole lot of other companies. Our software has been helpful. And I think, again, online presence, online scheduling, helped a lot for new patients. If you go to our website, you just click a button and you can make an appointment right there online. Because now it's all about convenience. People don't want to have to take time to call, get a hold of somebody, schedule an appointment. You can just do it right from your house.
What software is that you're using?
Called Grayfinch. So it's a newer orthodontic software, but I feel like they're very creative and updating a lot. So I think they're going to start becoming more and more popular.
So is it kind of like local med or no?
That's a good question. Well, local med, is that patient management also, or just online scheduling and
I think
review?
that's just online scheduling.
Yeah.
I
So this
think.
is so the initial orthodontic software I looked at, you still had to add all these other companies, like a local med for online scheduling or for reviews or Weave. So this kind of had all in one. So it included the online scheduling. It included automatic text to leave reviews. It includes sending out your claims to insurance. So it's kind of all in one, which helped a lot as a startup, because it was doing a lot of the work for me. As a startup, it's hard. You're split in so many different directions. You still want to associate, you have your family, you have the startup. So anything you can do to kind of get the process going and optimize is helpful, which is what Greyfinch allowed me to do.
Nice. Greyfinch. I never heard of that. I never
Yeah,
heard of them. Yeah.
yeah,
That's really, really good. Okay. So then what were some of the worst companies or ones that you feel like, oh man, this didn't fit with me?
yeah. So I jumped the ship from Invisalign. You'd think Ortho, it's all Invisalign. When I started up, the only way to submit to Invisalign is to buy an Atera scanner, to pay the monthly fees. So I kind of shifted to a company called Spark, which is made by Ormco. So if you've heard of like Damon brackets, that's all kind of in the same realm. So more and more clear aligner companies are coming out and, you know, able to compete with Invisalign, which has been helpful because Invisalign for a while was always the best. And now there's other companies that you've heard of, Clarity and Sure Smile, and all these that are now, up to par with Invisalign. So we used Spark, which has been helpful. They were helpful for a startup. They had graduate pricing. So as a startup, you want to try to keep your costs low. So that was helpful. So I actually jumped ship from Invisalign, which was a little scary as an orthodontist, but it's been working out well.
When you do people come in saying like, hey, I want Invisalign, and then what do you say in order to get them into Spark?
Yeah, so that was not my biggest concern, right? It's like, I want Invisalign. Why are you giving me this other product? And a lot of them actually don't mind. I call them clear liners. If they ask, I say, yeah, this is Spark. I like it better because it's ortho specifics. It's ortho specific company. It's a clear plastic. It fits better on the teeth, and it's now becoming, it's just the way to treat. It's just a modality. So like Tiger Woods golf clubs wouldn't be good in my hands, but he does well with them. So it's the same. It's a tool, right? It's the clinician behind it that's the important part. So I often compare it to tissue brands. Kleenex and Puffs. Will you know the difference if you had to? Probably not. So it's very similar to that.
Yeah. I like that. The Tiger Woods analogy. Oh, that was good,
Yeah,
man. That was really good. Yeah. So that's
I still shoot 100 if I use Tiger Woods clubs. So.
yeah, it's true. Okay. What is the if somebody wanted to like start out with Spark, how does that process go?
So I think you have to sign up. It's changed. It was kind of in its infancy when I got on board, and it's growing in more and more popularity. A lot of orthodontists are moving from other aligners into Spark. But you would just reach out to like the Ormco rep, and they would set you up with training. It's very similar. Almost all the companies I looked at have very similar software, so it's pretty easy to adjust if you're used to one going to another one.
Yeah. Does that ever bother you, Rob, where you like get patients who did Invisalign, but from a general practice, and then you're like, they messed it up. They didn't do this
Yeah, it was
right.
more the direct to consumer stuff. That
Also, like,
one,
okay,
yeah, that I
yeah,
can't go into. But yeah, seeing that stuff kind of bothered me because patients don't know. They think you should get good treatment regardless of who you go to. But some of the companies didn't take X-rays. There's crowns broken off and abscesses, and they're going through ortho treatment, which should come at the very end. So I'm happy to help out general dentists. I think there is certain cases that they can handle and be confident in doing so. And I always tell the dentist near me, like, if you have questions, I'll help you with the ClinCheck, because that pays itself forward 3 times. And if you help them on one case, they'll send you 3 patients. So I think it's less on the competition and more becoming colleagues and helping one another goes a long way.
yeah, I like that. So then, right now, what would you say is like the unique thing about your practice, whether it's systems that you've created on your own or anything like that, where it's
Yeah,
unique?
I think it comes down to the culture of the practice. I still call a lot of patients. As the practice gets busier and busier, doctors sometimes lose focus of the communication aspect. And we've had a lot of patients that went for multiple consults, but they end up treating with us because of, we took the time to sit down and go over everything with them. We didn't rush them out the door. I would call in to follow up on treatment and stuff. So I think it's patients want to know they're in good hands. They're going to be treated for a long time, and that they're just not another number. So we, try to make sure everyone's comfortable and almost part of the family.
I like that, man. So throughout this process, from the moment you decided to be like, okay, I'm gonna do this, the sublease first, right? Not the
Yeah,
official one,
yeah,
till right
yeah.
now, what have been some of your biggest struggles or your fails or pitfalls?
Not enough time in the day, and not enough caffeine. So like I said, when I started up, I was still associating. I had a toddler at home. When I decided it was time to do this, my wife was like, just make sure you're not spending too much time at, starting up. I want you to be part of the family too. So, I think that's the most challenging, dental school and residency, you put off your life really for a while. You don't buy a house usually. Most people don't have kids usually. So it all tends to happen all at once. You get your job, you get a house, you start your family. So um, that was the hardest thing, was trying to find enough time to make sure the practice is going well. And that's like where I said delegating tasks and stuff is very important, and hiring the right people that you trust that can do the job is very important. And it continues to be a challenge. There's still not enough time in the day to do things. I have a to-do list that it seems like I keep adding 3 things and doing one of them. So it's just, it never ends. But you still get to see your hard work pay off. So I've still yet to spend the night in my office, which was a big thing for me. I didn't want to be that guy that brings a sleeping bag, while you're starting up and pulling all nighters. So I didn't do that, which was my goal. So I still try to be at home a lot, but that's the hardest thing, is trying to be 3 different places at one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're being like pulled apart, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like here.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you feel like, or how's that working for you, man? How is that working for you so far? Like internally for you, for Rob, you're like,
Yeah.
I can keep doing this, or how do you feel?
I think I can keep doing this. So I worked at my associate job up until a couple months ago. So maybe about 15 months from my startup. I kept that because I needed that side income. That was hard. So I was there like 3 days a week, had my startup 2 days a week with patients. Then as a startup, you needed a whole other day of business stuff, and then the family. So that was challenging. I'm very thankful for my wife and her patience with me through that process. But now it's, I kind of laid off the side work. So now I can do more of the admin stuff during the week. Um, so it's getting better. I think the first 12 months was stressful. Learning how to do everything yourself. Like I didn't know how to do sterilization. I learned it because I had to.
Mhm.
So you make mistakes, you learn from it, and then you teach how to do it to someone else to be able to do it. So it's getting better. I think it's just a hard stretch in the beginning.
How do you deal with like the days where you just can't, you don't want to hear it from like your, you know what I mean? Anybody from anything. You
Yeah,
just, maybe your wife's like, where are you? Like all the time, or
yeah,
your kids are like, "Well, I need, you know what I mean? How do you deal with those
yeah.
days?
So the bad thing is I live close to the office. So it used to be like, your drive home, you didn't want to talk to anybody. You turned the music up, you put the windows down, and just kind of relaxed. I only live like 10 minutes down the street, which was what I want. I mean, I love the commute. I love being home.
Mhm.
But you need that time. And that's where having a good, member, like my spouse, my wife, if I needed a break she would take the kids, and I could kind of have a moment of silence, because you really don't get much silence once you have your practice and family.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
It's kind of like all the time. And I feel like that 10-minute drive is not so much to be like, oh God, I need to be, it's more like I just had a stressful day. I need to like turn that off and
yeah,
turn this
exactly.
on.
Yeah, you need to turn it off. I mean, I used to go to the gym all the time once I started the practice, and at my family, I haven't been to the gym in like 2 years. So hopefully, eventually, I'll start to be able to exercise again too.
No, that's good. Awesome. So then any last final piece of advice you want to give to our listeners?
I think just that patience and hard work pay off. You really have to put in the work. It's not gonna, your hard work's not gonna show up for the first year or more. But if you do the right thing with your patients and with your team, you're going to have success for decades to come. So,
Awesome. Okay. And the last question I want to ask you is, I know you said you did your finances, right? Like you kind of did your whole
yeah,
evaluation just recently.
yeah.
Where do you see room for improvement?
So we talked about this. It's getting new patients in the door, and that's I feel like for every practice. So I think that's where our next step is marketing. I think that's important for startups. You know, you don't want to spend a lot of money, but you need to in marketing in order to get patients in the door and build the practice. So I think our next step is to kind of push forward on the marketing side of things.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome, Rob. Thank you so much for being with us, man. It was a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yep. So Rob Laraway, we're at Canal Orthodontics, and if you're an ortho startup thinking about starting up or has started up, you can join us on Facebook group Ortho Startups.
Awesome. So, guys, that's all going to be in the show notes below if you want to check it out or talk to Rob, pick his brain a little bit more. And Rob, thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure, and we'll hear from you soon.
Thanks, Michael.